Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast, Who TF Are You? My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we've got sitting across from me the one and only SniperSkillz coming in from Region 302. SniperSkillz, hello, welcome to the podcast, and thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So first and foremost, why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself? Where do you come from? What do you do? Why do you play this game? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I'm from the U.S. I live in the greatest nation named Texas. That state.
My brother lives in Fort
Uh,
Worth, so I can appreciate that.
exactly right. So, yes, I'm from the U.S. Been playing the game for probably a little over a year and a half. It just was something that I never really thought that was going to be, turn into anything like it is now. But
Mm-hmm.
started playing a little free to play player, just peeling along. Started out in some little Vietnamese alliance when I first read into the game in 302. It was like it was so weird, getting attacked. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing,
Yep.
asking for help, and it just like it just progressed through. Joined another alliance, and then that alliance that actually I joined at the time is actually the alliance that I maintain and run now, which is SPaR. So,
So
um,
hold on a second. So you started off, and it was a Filipino or an Asian alliance, something that wasn't what you guys had, and you eventually took that alliance over, and now it's your own.
yeah, it was actually the alliance was called VNAR, I believe it was. They were a small little Vietnamese alliance,
Vietnamese. Okay.
and like no one spoke English. It was like so weird. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was asking like people in the chat, like, hey, what am I doing? I'm new, and then like we started getting attacked by like some other little alliance, and like I didn't know what. I was chasing them around the map, like, come here, and then they were attacking me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then like I remember I got into the region chat. I'm like, hey, what's
Uh,
going on here? I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, can somebody help me? Is there any alliance out here that speaks English or? And then I remember like somebody was saying, oh yeah, you're new. Basically the same thing that I do now. It's like, oh yeah, you're new. You might want to go join this alliance over here. And I'm like,
yeah.
who's two toe or who is one toe or
Yeah.
it was a whole bunch of other different alliances, and I'm like, sure, why not? So I started applying to these other alliances, and then there was just like this one alliance called Smiles, SMLZ, and I was like, hey, can I join you guys? I need to learn. I'll
Right.
be active or whatever. They're like, yeah, sure, come on. And so I joined, and I started getting the basics down. Like everybody does, is leaving unfinished nodes, not attacking hive minds with the right rally size when you're like
Or even the
barely
right
got a
troops.
350 mil. Exactly. Just stupid stuff and just learning the game as I went along. And then actually it joined Smiles. Eventually, the leadership of Smiles kind of just they quit. They quit playing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I had developed a couple friends within that alliance, and as I started growing, a lot of people knew that you know uh, I don't know why, just leadership just comes natural to me, and
Sure.
basically, and it's got a lot to do with just because I was in the military for so long. I know how to manage people, handle people, talk to people. I know how to lead and just set a good example for people. And then so when the leadership left, it was like, who's going to take it over? And then so they're like, oh well, Sniper can do it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't sure. I was like, I haven't ran an alliance on
Here, just
Doomsday. I
throw
don't know
you into the
anything about
position.
it.
Here you go. Just
Man, I'm
throw it
telling
in,
you, it was. Oh man, it was
chucked
a
into the
mess.
deep
And
end.
then so I took it. Yeah, I took it over, and it was just like everything is a learning experience. And then
Hmm.
it's just there's nobody to guide you, no one to teach you. And then I'm dealing with people from literally all over the world that speak French, Spanish, whatever. I'm like now in different cultures, for
Trying to
everybody
deal
from
with the
like the
translator
Middle
and
East. Oh man. Anyway, so I took over that alliance, and then we went through, every alliance does, it just go through the transitioning periods of growth and management and balance. We went from Smiles to where we got to a certain point where we needed a little bit more growth. Our players were kind of getting stagnant a little bit.
hmm
I started seeing a decline and players wanting to go to other alliances because they were more active and stuff like that. And so I made a basically a unanimous decision with the leaders that I did have at the time. I was like, hey, let's become a sub alliance for one of the bigger alliances. You know what I mean? And then that way we can gain the knowledge from them as players. You know, they can help
Mm,
us, or we can go join them, and then we can start understanding the flow of the game, the concepts of the game. They'll help us grow. You know, we can tell them that what we've learned, and it'll be good for everybody. And
right.
everybody's like, yeah, let's do that. So we had an alliance called Onto that was in our region 302, which
I've
they're
seen them
still
around
there.
too.
They're just
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They went through a mass exodus of players over an incident that happened in our region, and they really have never recovered. But
Really?
we became three toe, yeah, and then like after that whole incident, we were three toe. We became a sub alliance of them. After that whole incident, we became SPaR, and that was unanimous because we adapted the name basically because the way we fight, we always felt like we were the underdog.
Right.
Every event, you know. So and then we just kind of put it together. It was like, man, we fight like a bunch of damn Spartans. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah,
don't care
yeah.
what the odds are. We're gonna go at your throat every time. And then so we became. Well, we were going to become Spartans, but there were so many Spartans out there, and I was like, you know what? How about we just unite the Spartans? I was like, let's just call it Spartan Unite. And so and they're like, yeah, I like it. And
And
so
that's where it comes from.
we developed this sense of belonging within a lot. We formed an identity. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah,
who we
absolutely.
are, and we put something with that, and then we became Spartans United 302, and then so we literally when we get in the chat, we're like, hey, what's up, Spartans? You know what I mean? Because like we developed a wonderful identity for ourselves,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's stuck, and people, and well, not to say the people, the players, they thrive off that, man. I mean, it
Absolutely.
gives them something to be proud of. You know what I mean? So
Well,
we
just to
developed the
interrupt,
alliance.
sorry, just to
Yeah,
interrupt you. This brings up a really
yeah,
good point that I love to mention in most conversations, which is obviously the strength of the community. I think we were talking beforehand. I had asked you one of the things that you had liked best about the game, and I mean, we can sit here and talk about how fun it is. Actually building up your accounts and actually awakening heroes and getting those red hones. We can talk about how exciting it is to have all that kind of stuff and how to, fighting in the field can be intense and it's exciting and you can get that anxiety and stuff like that. But let's be honest, the thing that brings us back every day is the people that we meet, right? Even in this conversation, I mean, like, these types of conversations are important to have. And that's why I've been doing this podcast, is because I think, getting people out and meeting them and understanding that we are all real people just trying to do our best and just trying to have as much fun as we can, whether it's a break from reality or whether it becomes our identity or, whatever it is that we're all experiencing in the game. It really is about the community. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, I think you're muted or something all of a sudden. I can't hear you now. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's
okay.
good.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It's really the community that makes the game. I mean, the game is fun.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like you're talking about the anxiety, the moment of combat. You enter and then and everybody's troops are coming and it's about to, yeah, the clash. The clash they go in.
Fireball!
You just know the crap's about to hit the fan.
Yep.
But you know what? None of that matters. None of that matters unless you have the people next to you that are going in with you.
Exactly.
That's it. 100%.
Yep.
Like, like, hey, we're about to go on battle. You get on Discord or whatnot, and you got your team on there, and like, hey, it's about to go down. And the next thing you know, these people are popping online. You know what I mean? And it's like when, one of my R4s, Cole, he, he's the instigator. He's the kind of guy who likes to go poke the bear,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so funny because when we're gearing up for a fight, I mean, he's kind of like the guy that's over there jumping around. He's like ready to go, and then like
Leroy
it
Jenkins.
yeah, and these people, man, you become so close. You know that you start to learn their personalities
Yep.
and what makes them click and tick and stuff like that. You know what gets them mad, and it's the community is 100% is the main reason I think the game survives.
Mm-hmm.
It just really does. I mean, the game is fun. Don't get me wrong, and the strategy and everything that goes behind it. But if it wasn't really for the tight knit community that DSL does have, I don't think it would survive. I just don't think it
I
would.
I tend to agree with you. And like I said, talking to the people that I have, the sheer amount of people that I've spoken to, would tend to agree with you. It really is about the people that we meet, the friendships that we meet. I don't know how many people I've met, or I've spoken to who met their significant others, or they met their best friends in this game, or they've met, just made cross the world connections. There's a couple of people that I know from the States, for example, that I've pretty much already offered up rooms to if they ever come visit. You know what I mean? Like there's always room to do that. And you don't develop that unless there's a true bonding, right? And we can say, again, sure, it might be, just like how you in the military bonded with your brethren, right? In a time of war or in a time of strife. It's the same type of ideology. Here, I mean, you're bonding with players that you're growing with, you're working with, you're actively invested in their benefits as well, right? So it becomes a situation where the harder that you play in your alliance, the better it is for everybody else in your alliance, right?
Yeah, 100%. 2 points on that I'll touch on is like, you're talking about the community and building that bond. SPaR, we're huge on family. We call each other family.
Yep.
When we jump on, we got guys saying, "Hey Spartans," or "Hey family," or "Good night family." We build that core family kind of union where we're involved in each other in the game, but we're also involved in each other's lives. We know what's
Yep.
going on outside, the game. Like the T-shirt that I'm wearing now.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen the front of it. You know what I mean? But the front of it actually says SniperSkillz, and the back of it says Spartans Unite. Well, we made these T-shirts is because my leadership, we all got together up in Oklahoma, had a whole big camping trip, and we actually got to know each other, meet each other. It was fantastic. Over that time, my leaders will they basically they'll tell you we've become such good friends that if we ever leave DSL
Yeah,
and go play another game, we'll all probably migrate to another game together.
for sure,
It's
for
just
sure.
because yeah, and we're already planning another SPaR meetup. It's so cool to have that family, that belonging where you could have friends. You don't necessarily have to talk to them every day or see them every day, but you do see them you do interact with them in some way every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Well, not to mention, not
I
to
don't know.
mention, it makes it fun because these are people that you met in a freaking mobile game. Like, what the hell are we talking about?
Right.
I remember,
Yeah.
what was it,
Exactly.
15 years ago, 20 years ago? People were concerned about meeting people online. Like, how dare you meet somebody online? Are you crazy? You're going to get kidnapped, this and that. And now it's like
Right.
I've got people on my phone that I've never met in real life that live in Thailand that are like, hey, come visit me in Thailand. And I'm like,
Yeah.
contemplating it. You know what I mean? Like actively contemplating the
Right.
ideology. It's crazy. It's all through a mobile game. That experience isn't anywhere else. I never would have thought that I would utter those words, right? But you're 100% correct. And I just think it's lucky that you guys were able to, to actually meet up. That's a lucky thing by its own right to have a bunch of leadership within. How many did you guys actually have within your leadership meet up on a group like that?
We had about six, I think it was 6 or 7.
Jesus, all
We had
from the
people from
same squad.
Oklahoma. Yeah, all from the same, all from SPaR. They came as far as Tulsa from other side of Fort Worth, and we met up in like Broken Bow, Oklahoma. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure.
Up the mountains. And it was a good time. I can only spend a day. I got some family stuff that I take care of. That's on a personal level. So, but I came up for that day just to spend the day. They stayed for the weekend.
Yeah.
But still, regardless, it's just we had that time together to put a face with a name,
Mm-hmm.
put a face with a voice, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, and
absolutely.
really get to know these people on a personal level because
Yep.
that just changes everything.
It,
They get to meet you. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
if you're the leader and,
It,
and you're the R5, and they're like, oh, we finally get to meet Sniper, and then when they finally meet Sniper, they're like, oh, look,
oh,
he's nothing like we thought he was.
he's just a regular dude. You know what I mean? He's just some.
Just a regular
But
dude.
but
Yeah.
again, that's exactly why I love this podcast so much and why I've been getting such good reviews from it, from the public, because it's a prime example that shows that no matter who you are, no matter what might you are, we're all just real people. We're all just having the same experience, and the fact that you guys were able to make that come together is absolutely phenomenal. I think that's absolutely great. You know, some of my best friends, especially now, and again, I blame this on society. I mean, we live such a technologically advanced life now that most of the relationships that we build are online, right? You know, through the computer, through our mobile devices, things like that, right? Social media, yada yada. But this really kind of just isolates for me and kind of shows to me the strength of what you know, this piddly little mobile game has. Why it's still, you know, 2.5, 3 years later, while it's still kicking. Why they're still putting out more content. Why it's still growing. Right? It's not just because it's a fun game. It's because there's more to it. There's so much context. And the more that you play it, the more you experience it, the more you see how many layers there are, both in the community side as well as the mechanic side. Right? Like you were talking about before, when you first start, you're making all the same mistakes all the new people do, leaving half done nodes, not doing hive minds properly because we don't know the mechanics. But the more that we learn it, right, the more it starts to get more intriguing, because now there's actual like mechanics to it. There's actual mathematics. There's actual reasoning behind why you send hive mind marches the way that you send, or why you farm the way that you farm, or why you put the right heroes with the right heroes. And once you start to understand that prospect, the game really opens up, just like the community side, right? If you don't take the chance of jumping in to meet your alliance, to actually chat with them, to actually, you know, build those bonds, well, the game is just as, you know, pointless as if you didn't grow at all, if you didn't, you know, farm, if you didn't, you know, click the help button. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you didn't take the time and effort to go out and create those bonds, there's no value to the game anyways.
Correct. 100%.
So it's been one of those things that I've been really, really like to see, especially when it comes to things like, well, I'll give you a prime example. You're in region 302, correct?
Right.
And you guys have shared Metro, correct?
Yeah, we share Metro with two other regional alliances.
So this is a situation where you have to work with them, right, to create not only a community within your region, but you still have to work within those different alliances and make those alliance relationships work as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's so many layers that you have to dive into. And I find that the more that we dive into it, the more that we realize it's like an onion. You know what I mean? There's just layers and it's just the more that, and then they just add more. They add chips, they add beasts. We'll have genes soon. Like, don't even get me started on the changes of the game before it gets crazy. But that's a good question.
It's hard to keep up.
Well, it's true, but I got a question for you. What do you think about the chips? Beast chips.
Man. Oh, I don't even know how to even. You know, I just craft them and just put them on a beast right now, because it's just, you know, that's another thing. Like the amount of content. Like, okay, I can understand. I understand the concept of what IGG is trying to do. I really do. I played Star Trek Online for many, many years. You know, it's free to play, but you can also play, you know, pay to play. But so I get the understanding that, you know, they're trying to make money. They're adding new content. I just, when the Beast came out, I thought about, I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. They're going to add like something to enhance the squad. You know, that enhances the hero attributes or the squad attributes. And then come to find out the Beasts were like a total separate thing. Where they fight each other, which I thought, well, this is stupid. That's dumb. Like, why would you do that? I mean, the Beast is part of the squad. Like, okay, so if the Beast is going to fight the Beast, why not the Beast just help boost each, like, the squad or the troop type or the actual hero stats, you know what I mean, to help. They're going to fight each other anyways. I don't understand why they had to make a completely separate thing. So, like, when the Beast first came out, I didn't even, like, pay much attention to them, because really it didn't matter at the time, because my, you know, being the strength that I am, it was like I could still pretty much mop the floor with anybody. It didn't matter what size beast they had. You know what I mean? But over time, like, actually, that's funny, because it was just this past IR when we were playing, and I was just scrolling through some battle reports, and I never really do that. The only time I really look at battle reports is basically to see what the vehicle levels that my opponent has, or his equipment, you know, based upon the stats. You know, okay, if do I have an advantage here, how do I attack this player? But I was actually just going through the actual info, not the squad buff one, but the other one,
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of, I was just scrolling through like when, when the skills were kicking off, and I never do that, but I just happened to do that. And I started looking, I'm like, oh my, you know what? These beasts are actually starting to make an impact now.
So,
We might want to start trying to maybe pay attention to them because they're not going away. So,
right. So they're not going anywhere. And when they were first released, and what you'll experience is they're not as impactful for the majority of the game as you think they are. Okay, let me give you the easiest breakdown that I can. Because I'm going to assume, just like everybody else, you're probably just as confused with beasts as most people are, right? Beasts are there.
of course,
The developers didn't give us much information on how to use them. They didn't give us any information really on how they work. It's been on us as players to kind of figure it out on our own. But from everything that I've found so far, the beasts that you use in the field are almost irrelevant because they only engage and fight with each other. And so you can avoid the damage, right? Once your beast dies, recall your troop, resend it with a fresh beast because you don't have to heal the beast. It comes back fresh every time. You're effectively avoiding all beast damage in the field 100%. Now, granted, if you're fighting in big fights, recalling and resending can be a little tedious, but you can still avoid a lot of that damage simply by recalling and resending, right? So even if you do have beasts in the field because of their HP and stuff like that, you're really not getting as much influence from them as you want. They are, however, influential in rallies and garrisons because rallies and garrisons are longer fights. They're continuous engagement. You cannot recall and resend from those, right? Like if I'm the leading hero for it, I can't stop the march and resend. It's going to be what it is. So the physical beasts, in my opinion, are really the only ones that you really have to focus on. The other ones are there to, at least from what I can speculate, are there to support the garrison and rally beasts. Okay. So what I mean by that is that if you look at and what I like to do is I like to run, sorry, I got flies. We got goats inside. So we raised goats, right? Sorry to segue. We raised goats and we had a cold snap about 2 months ago. And during that cold snap, when it was minus 40 degrees outside, all of our goats decided to give birth at that same time. Now, you can't keep baby goats in minus 40. It just doesn't work. So we've had them inside the house now for the last 2 months. So I've got 7 baby goats in my house, in my living room, in a homemade pen that I've got them on, right? Hay and all that shit. But the problem is, as soon as you have wildlife by any stretch, you have flies. It comes with the territory. Yep. And the worst part is it's still snowing outside, but because I have it nice inside and I have goats inside, guess what automatically comes inside now, even in the fucking winter, pardon my French? I've got flies. Like what? In the winter, I'm supposed to have reprieve from these pesky insects, and no amount of cleaning, no amount of nothing, because here's the thing. They're just around the animals. You know what I mean? Like they're just present around the animals. And it's just frustrating. Yeah. Sorry to segue. Leave it to the goats to get on my mind. So what were we talking about? The negative side to ADHD. Oh, beasts, right. So they're really only impactful in rallies and garrisons, right? Because you can refresh them, you refresh their HP and stuff like that. You'll start to see those impacts. Now, the beautiful part about chips is that they've basically jacked up the beasts. So as little as the beasts were influential before, now they're just more influential compared to it. They're just more effective than what they were. And we're starting to see the true ramifications of what happens when you have a lot of stats, right? We're starting to see more of that damage increase. So they went from not being very effective or not being usable except in rallies and garrisons. Well, now because of the chips, and soon to be because of the genes, we'll start to see them being much more influential outside of it. Now, don't get me wrong. The leader beast typically still provides a boost to your troops, right? If you look at the pangolin, for example, the pangolin still provides squad damage reduction, right? Of like 2.5% or 1.5% or 3% if you're using the legendary, I believe. So there still is some influence on the marches themselves, but you're right. It's mostly combat within the beast system itself, mostly beasts fighting themselves, and there really is no other influence outside of that. But I do think that with genes releasing when they release them, you'll see a big change. Because we're kind of seeing the influence on what they have jump up with every new iteration of what to go with them.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah. I don't know. It. I I had one guy in this last AR that we just got done playing, and I went and fought this guy, and he he writes me afterwards, right? And he's all like, "Bro, my beast just kicked your butt." I'm like, "Yeah, but I just mopped the floor with you with my troops." I was like, "Your beast, yeah, he's like basically 100, he's maxed out beast, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?" But like I literally destroyed his entire squad before his beast. There was still a lot of damage to my beast. Had a chance before it could even kill my beast.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was just like I was like, I was like, well, maybe you should focus on your hero stats
Exactly.
instead of
The
putting so much in the beast, because really that's not going to win you battles. And
the number one
I don't
influencing
know.
aspect of the game is still armaments. Like, you still need to
Yeah,
have your 6
absolutely.
million, your 5 million, 6 million armaments. As much as they add beasts, and as like I said, as much as beasts are starting to have some influence, it doesn't matter. You still need your armaments. You still need your heroes awakened. Those things don't change. The vehicle is still super important. Your workshop's still super important.
100%.
The beasts are just over and on top of that. I'll give you a prime example. I have 2 different accounts, right? Well, I've got like 5 different accounts, but I play 2 different accounts. One I just got, it's a 180 million, all tier 6, research done, building done, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's a bigger hit. It has a 4 million Raigaro Riven garrison line, okay? But it doesn't have the garrison beast. Not nearly as leveled as what my other account is. On my other account, it's 135 million, but that one is hyper focused for garrison. So it's got a level 90 elite pangolin, which is fully like awakened, right? I've like the potential is at level 500 max. It's almost fully pristine life, but it's only needs 2 more copies to be fully effectively like transcended or awakened or whatever you want to call it, right? So it's at like 1.7 million, just the beast alone. It's pretty good. It does good for garrison. And I have a 4 million Thunder Riven combo, right, for garrison. So you're looking at a Raigaro Riven versus a Thunder Riven. So there is some indiscrepancies there, because obviously Raigaro Riven has a little bit more synergy, right? So it does a little bit better. But the beasts were completely different. So one was, like I said, one was almost a max pangolin and one was not even close. And although the max pangolin did like 15 or 20 times more damage than the opposing beast did, we still lost the march. Whereas on the other side, even with the same Raigaro Riven, right, with a less beast, we won the trades overall. So yes, the beasts look like they do lots, and it looks great when you see 5 million damage done by your beast. But again, it's not nearly as influential as your armaments are. It's not nearly as influential as your workshop is. It's not nearly as influential. Even, like I said, your vehicles, your workshop, all that stuff, armaments, far more important than your beast. The beasts look cool. They add a little bit of flair for sure. But right now, not nearly as influential as I think people think that they are.
Oh yeah, 100%. Something that I came across when I was playing was I made the mistake, and I'll just basically say it, just like basically what every tier six does, and it's not their fault that they actually make this mistake. It's that they build themselves that way as a tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 player, and then when they get to tier 6, or when they finally get their tier 6 troops, they're so lopsided that they're actually at a disadvantage than they would be had they built balanced. And what I mean by that is, I'm gonna explain this. I probably shouldn't, because I'm gonna give away my attack secrets, but I'm gonna do it anyways, just because for the community. So,
Well, it's going to be interesting. We're going to have a
at my,
debate about this.
yeah. So let me. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I got, what I'm packing in my bag right now. I'm
Sure.
basically 214 mil. I have pretty much all of my legendary heroes awakened. My Dut is nearly 4 mil. My Bella is nearly 4 mil. My Julia is nearly 4 mil. I don't even have like the Sonya awakened yet, or Stella. I don't even have. I still have the basic the ones that we have I don't really have any of the newer heroes really awakened and really combat ready yet. But on the other hand, what something I came across. Okay, so I was just like every other tier 6 coming up. Okay, I was very lopsided in my workshop, very lopsided. Like you pull up a battle report of another tier 6, and you always see this. You're going to see this almost every time. You're going to see level 16 attack infantry, level 14 defense, and then you're going to see level 3 rider attack, level 2 range attack.
Mm-hmm.
Very low stats on the
Sure.
other end. Okay, so I was the same way, and then like I kept getting my freaking face kicked in. Like I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. I know I'm stronger than this. I can't figure this out. I was like, you know what? I think I see where the discrepancy is, because I started looking at the battle reports, and then I started looking at my hospital. And then so the ones with the higher stats were obviously taking less damage, doing more damage, and the ones that I'm sending out into the field to fight with are just basically filling up my hospital. Well, I don't have time when I'm supporting my team to be sitting here trying to heal, you know, 300,000 rider troops or range troops when, equivalent to like maybe 100,000 infantry. I'm like, this is not productive. So I invested the time and the money to basically balance out my workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I am not the highest workshop that you're going to find for a tier 6. Like my highest max level for infantry attack is only level 10, tier 3, level 10.
Sure.
And I just got my riders to level 10, and my range now is a 9, about to hit 10. My defense is only 8 around them.
Sure.
Okay, but here's one thing I realized is that now when I fight a tier 6, I don't even scout the dude. I don't. I just hit him one time. I pull up the battle report, look at his vehicle. I look at the immediate ones that are the strongest. Like say his infantry is level 14 or level 17 on attack, level 14 on defense, but his other ones are kind of weak. So I immediately swarm his infantry.
Sure.
Completely 100%.
But let me ask you a question. How many marches do you fight in the field with? All 5?
All 5.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the split up of your marches? So like how many infantry, how many riders, how many range?
Yeah. I run 2 infantry, 2 riders, and 1 range.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the mentality. What you're doing is the most expensive way to do it. It's not that it's a bad way. It's that it's literally the most expensive way. So when people talk about, and I'm a huge proponent fan of what's called hyper-focusing, okay? And it's a term that's well known within the ADHD community, and it basically just means to, like it says, to hyper-focus, right? So everything you're doing is to be as strong as you can. Is the most cost-effective way to do it. Because here's the truth, right? You're sending 5 marches in the field. You're sending 2 infantry, 2 riders, and 1 ranged, right? You have to split up your resources to make all 3 of those ranged wings potent. But here's the difference. I run 5 infantry in the field. No riders, no range. 5 infantry. So why do I want to have bonus equipment for my ranged or my riders when I'm never going to use them? Number one, I never send them in the field because, like you said, they just fill up the hospital. There's no sense to use them. And number 2, I know that I'm never going to run a rider garrison. I'm never going to run a rider rally. I'm only going to join them. So I don't have to have, like my rider heroes, for example, are not awakened. Only my infantry ones are, because those are the ones I'm focusing on. Right? My range ones, I know that I'm never going to send them. I don't send them in the things. So even my ranged, I don't work on their armaments. They grow organically. If I get, as I level them up or as I acquire them, I'm going to level them up that way. But I'm not going to spend extra for them, because every wing that you open up is more resources that you have to spend to be more impactful. So I can see where you're coming from that says it makes sense to be balanced so you get better trades. But that's only if you're working on fighting 3 different troop types in the field. From my perspective, I've got 2 million infantry troops, 600,000 of the other 2. So I can still join rallies, I can still join garrisons, I can still refill enough from there, but I can still take 5 troops in the field, 5 marches in the field of infantry, and be much more impactful with those 5 lines than having to split it up between the riders and riders and ranged as well, right? So, like in 100%. My position, my warehouse, for example, my vehicles, the attack and defense for my infantry are level 15. But the other ones are level 3 or level 4 because, again, I'm never using riders or ranged in the field to fight with or anything else unless somebody else's heroes and somebody else's equipment and somebody else's armaments is the main lead, right? So that becomes my thought process, which is just counterintuitive to what you're saying, only because the way that you're looking at, yes, is absolutely the way that would be ideal if the game wasn't so heavy on, number one, resources for what things cost. Healing is ridiculous, right? Equipment, resources, research is ridiculous. The time frames that you need is ridiculous. That Bermuda Triangle taking, 3 years just by itself in speed ups, right? Before you unlock tier 6. Like, there's so many ways that it's already screwing us on resources. The only difference is your perspective just makes it, although it's, like I said, I would love to do it that way. It's just far more expensive to be efficient with all 3 types than it is to put everything into infantry first, or riders first, or range first, whoever you want to, whatever wing that you want to. And then, like, I'll give you another example. In my position, I now have all of my infantry equipment has been refined to level 10. Right? So now I can start refining the riders, or now I can start refining the ranged. But even for my parts, I haven't even upgraded any parts in the ranged or the riders because I never use them for anything. So why am I going to invest resources on those avenues if I'm never going to use them?
Well, you bring up actually a really good point there, because I'll take a step back on what I'm saying is that, because like I'll encounter smart tier 6 players in the field. Mm-hmm. Occasionally I'll find some really smart fighters that when they have like a build like yours particularly, they send all nothing but infantry out into the field. Now, I'm not gonna lie, but if they send 5 squads of infantry and that's their highest statted, troop type, you know what I mean? I'll struggle a little bit because I'm built for basically field fighting, which most tier 6s will send mixed squads out there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Even
they'll send a couple of each for sure.
Workshop, you know what I'm saying? So commonly, you probably see that more often than none, where they'll send 5 squads. You'll see, for a prime example, I encountered a 238 mil. This is before I was even 200. I was like 190, and there was a 238 mil in a Genesis war, and my vehicle is all balanced. Mm-hmm. This player was a high range focused kind of a player, but the funny thing is that they only sent 1 range squad out when they came to attack me. Mm-hmm. And then like I noticed that, and I'm like, oh man, I'm about to slaughter this dude, because his others are so unbalanced. He's sending out infantry and riders with lower workshops than me. Mm-hmm. And so I just immediately hit the range squad, completely like annihilated the range squad with 5 squads. And then all the other ones that were trying to flank my other squads were taking serious damage. So after he's 238 mil. I just annihilated this guy, and his workshop was like level 16 on his range. I'm not gonna say his range were weak; they were strong. They did some serious damage while I was hitting them.
Yeah.
But once I killed them off, the other troops were nothing. But I did not. Let's say this: like I did encounter a guy. I can't remember what his name was. He ran all infantry, and me and him squared off. We tried to avoid each other. You know what I mean? So sometimes strong tier 6s will avoid each other just to minimize hospital. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Resources is expensive.
Exactly. So a lot of tier 6s, smart tier 6s will try to avoid each other. But in this case, I couldn't avoid not attacking the guy because he was trying to hit some of my players going and doing some scavs. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let this dude annihilate my team.
Fucking bastard.
What I mean? So, I went after the guy. I mean, I had full, maxed out squads, 320 troop. I mean, coming in blazing in glory, bro. It was just like raw. Yeah. I hit this dude. He had 5 infantry squads, and like it was a dud Bodala. I mean, he had them maxed out. I mean, full legendary armaments, red homes. His vehicle attack was like level 17. His defense was like level 16. I mean, he obliterated me. I probably killed, out of his 5 squads, I probably killed 2, and he killed all 5 of mine. I was like, wow. Okay, I'm avoiding that dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no strategic way to really attack him, man, because I don't have 5 range squads that can even combat with him, to even counter his troops, because of what I run personally. And So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's really about picking and choosing your battles and knowing how to strategically attack a player,
Yeah.
knowing if you can actually win or not. Like for a great example, I mean, this last IR was a huge awakening for SPaR, just my alliance and just in general, because most of my players are great field fighters. I
Right.
mean, they'll fight till the death, but where SPaR has a lack in is in garrison.
Mm-hmm.
So we put so much focus on building heroes, building armaments, building your workshops that we really haven't put a lot of hyper focus into actually. Okay, we need about 5 or 6 people with great garrison teams. You know
Yep.
what I mean? We need 5 or 6 people with a great rally team, and we're actually in this process now. So after this AR, SPaR has actually taken a 3 month break from Genesis War and IR. We're only going to play AR
Mm-hmm.
because the rewards are pretty decent, and we don't have to really so much rely on ourselves. We got other alliances in the Legion. We can still assist and do things without being hyper like super like in the front lines. You know what I mean? Like where you usually are.
Yep.
But we're actually focusing on Garrison. I'm working on a Chasey build and Felix for a Rider. We got guys working on a Regaro Riven. We got Victor and Riven going. We got some others, some really decent that are stout uh, Garrison.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, people, I mean, field fighting is fun. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, the anxiety and the hype that you get, like,
Yeah.
but
But you
really
need to have those
the game is
players.
won between the towers. The
Yeah.
game is won between the towers because if you can't hold ground or take ground, it doesn't matter how well you can field fight. If you can't hold a tower, I mean, you're just going to lose ground.
And see, this is one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of hyper focusing your troops, even if it means, and this is the best advice especially I can give to free to play players, smaller players, things like that. You work on one march at a time, work on one troop type at a time, work on one, even if you're fighting with one march. Like you mentioned, the guy came at you with one good march and two bad ones, right? I would argue the problem is not that he came at you with one good march and two bad ones. It's the fact that he came at you with only 3 marches. If I was him, I would take my one march and make sure that I'm fighting when there's 3 or 4 or 5 other people there so that I can be strategic with my one amazing march. I'll give you another example. We had an IR where literally the determining factor to the IR was one hero. It was one player who had a 6.5 million Julia. And we had nobody else within our bracket who could defend against that, period. You can't garrison against that in the IR, right? Because this is right when Bard came out. So Julia Bard was huge, right? And he really only had the one march that we had to worry about. Yeah, he had other marches to go with it too. But the determining factor was the fact that he could take any tower he wanted. He could take any building he wanted with his one march, running one rally of Julia Bard. No one could stand up to him. Right? Even at a 4 million garrison, you're not going to stand up against a 6.5 million Julia. It's just not going to happen. So even one march can have that much influence. That's why I always suggest to people, right? One of the cheapest ways and most cost-effective ways to do it is to hyper-focus work on one march at a time, work on one hero at a time, work on one set of armaments at a time. Don't try to spread yourself too thin because it's expensive. And if what we're trying to do is be as cheap and as efficient as we can, right? As much as, like you said, fighting in the field with 5 troops is fun. When I see my hospital bill fill up with riders and ranged, and I know that my infantry now is going to die because of it, it's a very quick reason for me to never use riders and ranged in the field ever, Even if it's only running 3, I'll run 3 marches in the field comfortably. Save 1 for garrison, 1 for rally, and run 3 strong in the field. That's totally fine too. But I think a lot of people miss out on the fact that fighting 5 in the field or fighting 5 strong or running 5 marches or, like you said, being balanced is really a capability afforded to the stronger ones, the more experienced players in the game, or the ones that unfortunately spend more in the game, right? That's typically the experience that they'll be able to experience a little bit more. It's not the newer players that can start building and be effective by being even. It's so hard, especially with the skill cap and how things go from being easy and then really difficult very quickly. I don't know about you, but that beast invasion skills, right? The levels for the beast invasion, I can't even get past 45. And there's 1,000 for fuck's sakes, pardon me.
I know, it's crazy. It's freaking ridiculous. No, you make a really good point there. Like even in SPaR, like even my new players, I don't encourage them to build balanced from the very beginning. I
Hmm.
don't really. I tell them to focus on like you said, like we all did. We did the same thing. Was focus on one hero, get it awakened, build one good squad, whether it's an infantry squad, rider squad, have that one support, that good anchor squad in your fighting ability. Um, for me, it was just that for me, it was just getting or gaining the experience of being able to fight so much to where I realized that you know I
How
don't
many
have
how
the
many
troop
kills do
count.
you how many kills do you have right now? Sorry.
480 mil. I think I'm
Jesus. Yeah,
right
see
at 400.
that's why you'd want to be
Yeah,
balanced. I mean, when you're doing that many kills, it makes sense.
yeah. Because I mean, it was like it was so funny. Like was it maybe the last AR that we played? You know, it was hyper. It was super active AR. Like
Hmm.
everybody was just at each other's throats. We were fighting, tower fighting, field fighting. You name it. I mean, there was never a dull moment. Like for every time that you turn around, there was a fight breaking out, and it was me and one other guy. He was obviously of the well. I mean, he had the garrison. I had the field fighting ability. So basically, at the end of the day, all I needed was some squads in the field, and we could fend off pretty much anything that was coming at us, and we could just build towers at will. You know what I mean? And he could garrison. They couldn't take it, so we were just pushing through the map. And um, I think I ended up just in that. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous amount of kills. I think at the end of that AR, I think I had nearly 85 million kills. 85 million.
In
I
one
count. I
AR.
watched in one AR, man.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude, I went berserk. I mean, I filled my hospital like 6 times. I emptied it, but I had plenty of resources. I was able to sustain
Yeah, yeah.
my field battles because I had the resources to do so. If you don't have the resources, you can't. It don't matter what troop you run, you can't sustain it. But
Yeah.
I
That's why
had
farm
saved up
accounts
for
are
a long
important.
time. Exactly. And so, well, after that AR, everybody started creating farm accounts in SPaR because they realized that they needed more resources to be
Hmm.
able to sustain something like what I did. I was like, I proved that it's possible, but you got to have the resources to sustain it.
Yeah.
And
And the
I
bots,
ended up with
pardon
so
me.
many kills. Like, yeah, I was like surprised myself. I mean, my points were like nearly 600 million points. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, it was ridiculous. And I don't think I could have actually achieved that had I not got that balance in my workshop because
Sure, absolutely.
just being able to be strategic about, okay, we have a chat in SPaR, right? So every time a player engages another player, we don't even bother sending out a motorcycle scout. You don't even get the information that you need.
No, not
As
anymore.
soon as
It's
you hit
crap.
a guy, you share the battle report. We got a battle report chat, so we can actually click that, see the player, know his weaknesses, know his strengths, know what to stay away from, know what to send, know what to attack.
Yeah.
And that actually has paid more dividends actually in field fighting than anything that we've encountered because if we can see a player is strong in infantry, okay, we're going to stay away from his infantry. We know we can send uh, Cole, who's my range guy, to go out there and basically slaughter him, and I'll support Cole from the flank. You know what I mean? So we rotate around. Really, we talk in during game. Hey Cole, I need you to hit this guy. Let me flank him because he's range strong, or he's infantry strong. You hit him with your range, I'll flank him, and then we do a lot of damage in the field. But uh, that's what I think. I mean, I just think that's what makes this game so fun. It's not so much yeah, you gotta pay your part. You gotta do your part if you really want to be competitive. But at the same time, if you know how to be strategic about how you fight and what your overall objective is, man, you working with your team, hands down, is
Of
the best
course.
thing about this. Win or lose,
Yeah.
win or lose.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still lose, and then you could be working with your team, and y'all could all be losing together, but you're all still fighting together, and you're just like, you know what? They were just better team. We lost. We gave it everything that we got. Or on the other hand, was like, hey, that was a great battle. We kicked the crap out of those guys. You know what I mean? So it, and man, it builds such a great unity and camaraderie with your leadership, your team, even your smaller players, because you inspire them. Believe it or not, when you're out there fighting for them, or they're getting attacked, and then you come swooping in, and you just unload on a guy, you know what I mean? And they're just like, a sniper showed up, you know what I mean? They're just,
So that,
it's so,
but
it's
that
a
brings up
beautiful
a good
thing. If
point.
we,
Yeah, that brings up a good point though. This is also a reason why I think you probably pardon me, why you probably do better having a balanced situation. Because
yeah,
a lot of the success of your alliance relies on you being able to perform. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm a firm believer that like you talked about, everyone finds their place within their alliance, right? I believe wholeheartedly that, you know, not only do you have to find an alliance that fits within your play style, pardon me, but you also have to find one that fits within your wallet, right, within your pocketbook. The same
correct.
type of thing. So in your position, because you have so many people that are counting on you to step in and be that person who can come in and take care of business, right? It's more efficient for you to have that balance throughout your kit, because you have so many different, you know, pants that you have to fill. But ideally from here, like you were talking about, you know, you guys are taking a bit of a step to focus on some of your shortcomings, whether it's in your garrisons or your rallies or what have you. And I think that right there just proves that you're dealing with your alliance management kind of on the better parts of things. I mean, it's one of the things that we're trying to do in GROP as well. We're dealing a lot with might limits and who's participating and who's not. One of our biggest things is a ratio. So we only play 2 events a month. We don't generally play Genesis War because the fight times are too restrictive. So we generally play IR, Island Raid, and Archipelago Raid. But during those events, we want to make sure that every player that plays with us is carrying their own weight. Because the worst case is when you get a new player, you get a player with you that you've been growing for a while, that's been growing with you, and they don't pull their own weight. They don't participate enough, right? So our what I mean by that is very simple. When you go into a matchmaking, regardless of your might, you have to think of your might as the weight that you're bringing with you to the confrontation, because the game compares you, right? It's all additive, right? It's all considered under the same rating. If you go into an event and you don't perform, you're asking the rest of your alliance to perform for you and carry your ass, which some alliances are fine to do, some alliances aren't. But what you'll notice is that a lot of the alliances that allow for that also have massive problems with overall participation. So one of the things that GROP does is we focus on something called a ratio. So every player their goal is to earn as many points as they have might. So if you have 100 million points, you're anticipated to earn 100 million. If you have 100 million might, you're anticipated to earn at least 100 million points in the event without PvP. We say without PvP specifically because PvP is cheap and easy. Anyone could do it for points, and that's irrelevant. But we want you to be active during the fight times of the events, right? So we shoot and push all of our players to acquire as much of that ratio as they can. 1-to-1 is kind of the ideal. That's the goal. But we also reward players who push hard, who score, let's say, half of the ratio. So let's say they have 100 million and they score 50 million. They're still going to get some rewards because typically that's a pretty okay showing. If you're 200 million might and you only score 100 million points, that's still all right. It's not the best. Obviously, we want you to score more, but it's all right. It's still better than the average. But that becomes our total goal. Now, this also accounts for smaller accounts. So if you only have 20 million might coming to event, you're only on the hook for 20 million points, which is easily achievable joining rallies, joining garrisons, even if you're not field fighting, joining rallies, joining garrisons, refilling, collecting cement, farming for the resources, all that kind of stuff, building towers, all that kind of stuff will add up to your points. And this gives players of every size a goal to focus on. But it really shows that you're carrying your own weight. If you go over and above, fantastic, right? But that's really your goal. Carry your own weight. And one of the things that the reason I bring that up now is because we're going through a period where we've looked through, and there's a good handful of people bringing a decent amount of might, but not much participation during events. And although we can say the community is strong and friendships and bonds and stuff like that are great, in GROP, yes, we've created a family environment where, we like to help each other out and we're very communicative and we're really helpful with each other. we also understand that this is a competitive team environment, right? If you don't pull your weight, unfortunately, you can't play here. Do you know what I mean? Like there's if regardless of the relationships that we build, I don't fault my friends, but in the same breath, if they're not as competitive as we need them to be, I'm okay with also saying go find another alliance that will play with your that plays better to your play style, which is exactly what I'm a believer of. GROP is not for everybody, but the people that are there love it, and that's really all that matters.
Right. You know, it's fun. It's kind of funny because we identify, as an alliance with many other alliances like GROP, FREC, even HMB, because I spent some time over at HMB playing with those guys. You know what I mean? And just getting to know some of the community and some of the wells and then some of the guys that we've played against or played with. You know what I mean? Spending some time with them and coming to realize that what you're talking about is pretty much a universal. I don't want to say a problem, but it is something that is pretty much universal throughout almost probably every alliance because HMB is going through it right now too. I was just talking to MP5 about it the other day. You know what I mean? That they got a bunch of freeloaders, people just coming in, working over, won't field fight, won't help. I mean, when you're fighting alliances like UOD or SSI, even if you have ROK as an alliance, an ally in there, you still need your alliance members to be able to step up and play.
You still have to participate,
do. And so you look at SPaR overall, and you look at them. Okay, so we're like 4.5, 4.7 billion might, right? But on the hindsight, we have like 107 members, but we're really I mean, that's including farms and everything else that we have in the alliance to help feed our main accounts. Really, at the end of the day, if I was to get rid of all the unnecessary, like the farms or whatever else that we got, we're probably about 65 strong. That's it. We're not that big of an alliance, really. Overall, we're super active, but we're capable of being competitive with a smaller amount of number of players because of the activity that we do have, and that we promote that. Like bringing a new player, it's like, hey, look, man, I know I'm not expecting like you to go out into the field and produce what some of these other players. What I am expecting is that you continue to grow. If you're asking questions, we'll answer whatever you want. We'll help you with whatever you need to help you get to the level that you want to get to help the team. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I've taken that mentality with a lot of players, and it's actually overall it takes about 3 months, but if you can maintain with those players with that mentality, the dividends will start paying off because they'll start growing. They'll get out into the field. They'll start having little battles, and then they start winning. And when they start winning, they're like, "Oh, I can do this. Oh, hey, Sniper, how do I get stronger here? Or what should I do here? Or how should I develop this hero or stuff like that?" And then I start sharing my heroes. I'll start giving them tips. I'm like, "Hey, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked because I've seen your progress and I've seen how things you're doing in the battles. I want you to. I think you're an essential player. I think you're going to be an essential player." And it gives them the inspiration to want to be more team active and
push a little harder.
Really and push a little harder. And it's funny that you bring this up, and this is a great conversation as far as player development goes. Like we had a conversation earlier about the gold vault being like
perfect,
so huge.
Yep. Right? Absolutely great addition to the game.
The difference between I'll just break it down. Like, okay, so I can't compete with a guy like Ace from over in SSI. The guy spends a total amount of money. My budget roughly is about $200 a month. I spend what I spend on to basically help build my character, which makes sense, or build my shelter, which makes more sense to me. You know what I mean? A free-to-play player, they're just at the mercy of whatever the game provides them.
They're the mercy of the developers.
Grinding, and then they're just getting left in the dirt. And I saw this discrepancy. I was like, man, I wish there was some way that we could help the free-to-play player because there really wasn't until they implemented the gold system. So now it's like I have, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 free-to-play players in SPaR. They're strictly free-to-play. They don't spend any money, right? When they implemented the gold vault, we started allocating 100 gold per week for every free-to-play player as long as they were they were participating,
Yeah.
and they continue to grow. Like each week, I see some growth. I see some more growth. And they're in the field. They're like you said, they're filling rallies. They're garrison. You don't expect them to much really get out there and field fight because they're just going to get slaughtered anyways. But as long as they're doing something to help the team, then then that's worth investing into them. You know what I mean? But since I started doing that, I've literally the freedom. It's it's funny, but it's actually very cool at the same time because the things that we're used to doing that becomes like I just wasted that guy. You know what I mean? It almost becomes like easiest breeding. You know what I mean? For
Mm-hmm.
them, it's not. Like, serious for them because they're investing so much time without the actual the money resource. We're giving them basically free money for the gold that they're investing in it to building their workshops, getting the armaments that they need to be able to compete with. And then when they get out there, like it was so awesome. Like this AR, I had one player that I've been working on as a French player, and I've been helping him develop his armaments. I've been helping him develop his workshop, and I've been giving him some gold. Right,
Mm-hmm.
he's free to play, and I watched him over time. His mics going up. And now, granted, I'm about to tell you this. You're going to be like, this is amazing. He's only a tier 4 player,
Mm-hmm.
right? He scored almost 40,000 points in just his AR as a tier 4.
40 million.
Yeah, excuse me, 40 million
Okay.
points as a tier. And
I was about to say 40,000. That's
yeah, I'm sorry.
That's good.
Everybody noticed. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then I'm not surprised. The guy, every time he gets his gold, or every time I tell him, hey, develop in this, invest in this, he does it. And then what the cool thing is that he'll share battle reports. He's like, hey, Chief, check this out, man, and he'll share it to me. I'm like, man, that is awesome, bro. I was like, yeah, he's a tier 6, and like he beat you. Granted, he's a tier 6, you're a tier 4, but the amount of damage you did to him
The trades are
compared
better,
to, you know
yeah.
what I mean? The trades are like you're getting to where you're getting now. As you start getting your tier 5s and you start
Yeah.
developing
You'll
more,
be punching
I
harder.
was like, man, you're gonna
Yeah.
start seeing that start coming out, and then it's as a leader, and you'll understand when I say this. As a leader, it's so important for us to be able to not only encourage the new player and hey, don't quit. You know what I mean? Just stay with it. If it's something that's just not working out for you, then that's fine. I understand if you want to quit, but if it's something that you're interested in, and like in building the team and the camaraderie, and then getting out there, look, I'm going to support you. I'm going to give you everything that you need to be successful. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's super important as for guys like me and you, when we're developing, because we're only as strong as our weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
So if 3 guys out there field fighting, but everybody else can't, you know what I mean? Then that's not productive. You're not going to get anything accomplished. But um, we all started at 500,000 might.
We all started
we
from
all we were
zero.
all
Like we all had to
we were
rescue
all that
Peggy.
little right. We were all that little guy. We were
Yeah.
just that little dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
absolutely.
a lot of alliances forget about the little guy, and it's funny. Actually, me and MP5 were talking about that the other day because HMB is going through this transition to where there's a lot of uncertainty. I have seen throughout their players, and I've been talking to a lot of them, about the standing of their alliance and just in general. And I get it because kind of SPaR went through the same thing with the non-actives or the people wanting to leech or off the rewards and not
Mm-hmm.
participate and stuff like that. And I
See,
told MP5, look, at some point there's nothing wrong with taking an overall look at yourself in
yeah.
the mirror and say, okay, do we want to continue this, right? Or does it make sense to reduce and step back?
Mm-hmm.
Even if HMB is as strong as they are, up at fighting in G1, G2, G3, does it really make sense? Because you can't compete with SSI. I mean, you walk into an event and they just obliterate everybody.
Nobody
Now, does
competes
it
with
make sense to
SSI.
maybe right, exactly. I was like, does it make sense to drop down to maybe like G10, maybe drop your dead weight and just take in what you have that for 100% every battle they're going to show up no matter what,
Yeah.
and maybe get into the elite ranks where you can compete because at the end of the day, like MP5 and me were both saying, like if you're not having fun, the game is irrelevant.
That's right.
I mean,
Like
you
I
can
said,
get beat
like
and have fun,
like I've said
or you
every
can
single
win and have
time, you have to find an alliance that fits your play style and fits your pocketbook. Because if you don't,
Right.
right, and this is, and don't get me wrong, a lot of these top players, or top ranked alliances, SSI, ROK, HMB, UOD, things like this. The problem with these alliances is the fact that they have so many spenders that there is so much free shit that the enticement to have a leech or have a player who's not participating is far outweighs what it is, even in GROP. Don't get me wrong, we have our spenders in GROP. We earn a decent amount coming from our vault that gives us enough to, reward our players. But it's nothing in comparison to what SSI is, what ROK is, what UOD is, HMB, things like that. So the tough part from their perspective is that finding what fits your pocketbook for the majority of their players is nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like free. And so they are in that situation where, because they have so many players and they have so many rewards, it's hard to find the actual players that give a shit about the game and aren't there just for their own selfish means, right? So one of the benefits that I have of being in GROP, where we fight either in Fearless or Elite, depending on how heavy we are, is the fact that all of our players, all of our whales and everything else understand, right, that's what our perspective is. Here's our ratio. Here's our goal. Any new players that come in, look, I'm welcome to try out anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem giving people the benefit of the doubt, but they come in understanding that our goal is very simple. This is a family. This is a house. We love to build a community, but we are a community of active individuals. We are a community of fighting individuals. And if you cannot pull your weight, as much as you love being here, there's no problem for me to go click, click, dismiss. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because it's really offensive. It's offensive not to just use an R5. It's offensive to all your other players, like my R4s. Like, and it's funny because over time, as the R5, like there was one time where I was like literally just about ready to say, I'm done.
mm-hmm.
Like, I can't do all this. And I literally pulled all my leaders inside, like, you guys have got to help me. I need somebody to run Pompeii. I need somebody to do the IR registration. During events, like I need people who need to start learning this game to where, like, at the beginning of AR, when all the negotiating is going on, I don't have time to be telling people what to do. I just don't have, I can't
do it all.
Yep. I can't do it all. And everybody starts stepping up and start filling the voids. And like, if you look at SPaR, like main page, like where you put up the alliance and you look at there, like I have literally a military rank structure. Like sniper is a general. Then I have, it's the brigadier general, the major general, the lieutenant general, and then those names that are filled in there are players that can step into my role or move up. Who basically, if one of those players tells you to do something, you do it. Because when you don't, it's offensive because these players are invested in this alliance. So when we get a player come in, and sometimes they don't, because I'll get messaged all the time. Hey, can I come over and join SPaR? Hey, dude, I'm just going to tell you right now, we work for our food over here. You know what I mean? Like, we fight. Like, if you're not willing to get out there and bleed and sweat with us, then probably not going to be for you.
That's right.
It's
like, probably not the right place.
Come in, I tell them, if you don't come in here and you're 100 million might, 140 mil, and you don't come in here and you don't at least put something down on the battlefield, you know what I mean? I was like, you're gonna offend a lot of players. And then not only they may not say something to you, but my leaders are definitely gonna say or share their dislike with you. So, and you won't be here. And a lot of them, I'm just blunt with them. I'm just brutally honest with them. A lot of them, they can't handle that, and they go off and join somebody else, which is fine, because I would rather them do that than come over here and then be just a leech or a detriment to the team. Mm-hmm. Like you were talking about earlier. I tell players all the time, hey, look, dude, if especially IR, because now that you can register players like you do Pompeii.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You do not show up for IR and I register you. That's might that we have to eat. That is might that's being not taken accounted for, because I just registered you at 100 or 80 million might.
Yep.
Now we got to make up for that because you didn't come to the fight. You know what I mean? So that's not fair to the people out there fighting, because if you can't make it, then just tell me, no problem. Hey, we put real life ahead of the game, like work, family, stuff like that. That is 100%.
IRL always comes first, man, for sure.
Exactly, 100%. If you can't make it, hey, not a problem. We don't stress that. We'll take who we know we're gonna go with, and that's okay. That's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say, "Oh yeah, I'm coming for sure. I'm gonna make it," and then like so you have an IR event, which is like 3 days, and so you're talking 72 hours of worth of an event, and then you're only showed up for basically 2 or 3 hours of that event, and you're 80, 85, 90 million mic. Well, somebody's got to pick up that slack for the mic
Yeah.
that you added to the team that could have been. Now I'm not saying it would be, but it could have been the difference between one one rank placing and another. You know what I mean? It could
Absolutely.
have been a difference
Absolutely.
between 10 tier 6s that were fighting or 5 tier 6s that were fighting.
It can
So
be the
people don't take that
difference.
into account.
Listen. It can be
Oh,
the difference between winning and losing chainsaws, which is subsequently the difference between winning or losing Archipelago Raid. You see what I'm saying? Like one individual player, as much as we want to sit here and say that, like, one person, it's not a big deal if one person does it. It's a big deal if everyone does it. But the problem is, like, here's the way I look at it. Every event is effectively a race, right? Picture it this way. Every event is effectively a race between the alliances. You're bringing to this race, and the entire goal of the race is to carry your weight, right? Carry a specific amount of weight from one side of the arena to the other. That's the goal. And everybody that comes brings a certain amount of weight with them and puts that in the team's reserve. And your whole goal is to simply carry this weight from one side to the other. Regardless of who wins or loses, that's your goal, from one side to the other. And if everybody brings their weight and then one asshole sits over on the food line, eating from the buffet the whole time during the event, everybody else is still carrying the weight. The goal hasn't changed, right?
yeah.
But that's effectively the way that I look at it. So, and this is the way that I explain it to people. When you come to GROP, come, no problem. Have fun. Don't quote that. Don't clip that. Don't clip what I just said. That was disgusting. That's not what I meant. If you want to come play at GROP, you're welcome to. But realize, like you said, we work for our food. We fight for our food. So make sure that you come strong. Bring your troops, right? Set up your numbers and prove that you belong here. And everybody does. And if you don't, that's fine. It's okay to suck. That's all right. Just understand, you're not going to suck here. You're just going to go suck somewhere else. That's fine.
Exactly. Hey, look, I tell people all the time, like, I come across, I mean, you know what I mean, as an R5, you talk to a lot of people, and you hear a lot of people talk a lot of crap, you know what I mean, or gloat, or this and that and the other. You probably get called weak, or worthless, or piece of crap. At the end of the day, you can only control what you can control, and then who you can control, which is basically your alliance. You can't control anybody else. Like you said, I'm really big on participation. I had one player there in AR. I mean, we're in the midst of a massive land brawl. I mean, field fight brawl. It was going down. You're talking probably 50 players on each side. It was like one of them. It was like a classic SSI HMB just field fight. I mean, it was literally going down. And then I had one player. I'm not going to say him because I don't want to call him out because he's about 80 mil. You know what I mean? He can pull some weight if he wants to. But we're over here fighting, and like I'm seeing this guy running hive minds during AR, and I lost my crap, dude. I mean, I went in the chat. I'm like, what the WTF? I'm like, no.
There is nothing that,
like,
listen, there is nothing that pisses me off more than ass fucks who are sitting there running hive minds during war times, okay? You can see we have rallies. You can see we have enemy rallies, and you have the balls to run hive minds?
No. Oh, yeah. You want to upset an R5, or you want to upset some R4s real quick? I was like, do some crap like that. But
I can appreciate leaving half-used nodes. I can understand unused nodes, right? There's times when it happens, whether you accidentally sent out the wrong line to the wrong troops, whether whatever it is, whether you're recalling for Pompeii or Antipede or whatever. I can appreciate accidentally leaving additional nodes here and there, no problem. But I swear to God, If
I
you,
already know.
you know what I'm gonna say, okay? I swear to
Yep.
God, just once, just once is enough for me. One hive mind is enough for me. Okay, it's just enough. One crazed zombie. Okay, you run a crazed zombie that isn't one of the ones that the opponents summoned to block you in. You run one wasted rally. I swear to God, there is no faster dismiss button at the end of the event. Okay, no
Oh yeah,
faster
100%.
dismiss button.
Yep. Done it. I've been there too. Done it. Done it. I've actually, man. Oh my God. Here's a great story. It just kind of in the same. The worst one you could. I can deal with an event. I can tell a player and say, hey, we don't need to be running hives right now. We need to be, assisting the team. And usually they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're right. Let me get over there. Bam, and then I'll show up.
Mm-hmm.
The one that pisses me off the most. I mean, literally crawls to my core is when you're running Antipede and somebody runs a fucking hive.
In the middle of peed.
I know, dude. I had it happen one to me like several times, and then like the one time I finally just went off, man. Like I kept telling this guy, cancel your rally, cancel your rally, cancel your rally. He wouldn't cancel that rally, so I immediately just dismissed him from the alliance.
You
Like
know what you
immediately.
should have done?
Check this out. Oh wait, it gets better. He gets mad because I dismissed him in the middle of what we had going on.
Yeah.
He comes over and sends like a couple troops, and he attacks my shelter in the middle of Anapede.
Okay.
Now, granted, I don't really need the Anapede points, so he just threw gasoline on a
Dem's
fire
fighting weeds.
that he put out.
Yeah, no
Yes,
doubt.
sir.
Dem's
But
fighting weeds.
I immediately recalled all my squads and went over there and just basically annihilated his shelter, like and
Jesus.
domed him, shielded him up right there on the spot. And he was like, "I don't understand." I'm like, you know what? You might want to leave because when your shelter drops again, I'm coming after you again.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like, and so he ended up just leaving. I'm gonna tell you what, Anapede is like not the time to mess around. I mean, players need that carbon. They don't have time for you to be running hive minds while they're
Listen,
trying to get.
not only is that carbon important, but I'm gonna be frank with you about one thing. As soon as I got this account that has all red equipment, I was like, crap, what the hell am I going to need Antipede for? I have so much carbon now, it's just wasted. I can't use it, right? It's like everything else, it just ends up being product in your bag. But I went, holy crap, there's actually 17 4-hour trading speed ups. So it's not about the carbon, it's actually about the training speed ups. That's what it is for me, man. That's the big thing.
It is now. So yeah, there's a lot of quirks and things in the game. I have to, I have a great team. At the end of the day, and
you've developed a good team. I hear that.
I have, and a team that I can really, I call friends. I really call them my friends because there was there was a time in the game where the anxiety of the game would get to me so bad, that I would literally like have heart palpitations, man. Like it got bad. Like,
yeah, I feel you.
I would one AR he got betrayed by the other Legion that was actually paired with us, and then everybody was getting burned. So all my players that were like in this area were all getting just completely annihilated, and there was nothing I could do.
Right.
Like, and I was on Discord. I was literally was hyperventilating, and then I actually had a panic attack. Believe it or not.
No, I believe it. I believe it.
I was to call an ambulance because I told my leaders like my Pry and Snake, and then I told them what was going on. They're like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay." But eventually it passed, and then I started realizing that look, even as an R5 man, there's only so much you can control and so much you can manage at one time. If I've gotten to the point now where like, okay, if you're gonna put your shelter in harm's way, you're responsible for it, not me. I can't, I'm not gonna sit here and try to. I'll message you on Discord and say, hey man, you might want to move your stuff. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna go over there and set a whole bunch of troops in the garrison your shelter because you didn't want to go to the safe zone when you logged off, or you didn't want to bubble up when you logged off. I mean, I can't remind you, hey, when every time, because we do it every event. I try to write an alliance mail saying, hey, look, just some things to cover. If you log off, go to the safe zone. If you don't want to go to the safe zone, make sure you bubble up. Make sure you're filling rallies. Pay attention to what's going on in the field and stuff like that. Just some pointers. So it's not like I don't cover it. I just realized that after I started covering it, I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've already said. So if somebody says, well, now I told you at the beginning, this is what you need to do. I can't. We're a family, but you can't expect us to put ourselves in an unwinnable situation.
It comes down to accountability.
And it does, absolutely 100%. And once my team started developing and we started developing the relationships, man, it took so much stress off me that they were actually able to fill in and take on roles within the alliance that I didn't necessarily have to do anymore. And which I still got my hand in, but I don't necessarily have to put a lot of attention on it because number one, I trust them 100% of whatever decision that they make. And if they make that decision, then I'm going to back them up because probably they know me so well that they know that Sniper would have probably made the same decision. It's
Sure.
And even if they're wrong, I let them make that decision, and then I'll just talk to them later. Say, hey, look, we probably could have handled this differently, but accountability goes both ways because
it does.
I'm the type of player.
It does.
I'm the type of player that you could ask any of my team. They're like, oh yeah, Sniper, he's laid back, he's all good to go, but when he says fuck this,
it's on. The other foot drops.
You don't know what he's about to do, but he's about to do something crazy, and he's probably going to regret it. And I've done it. Like I've had times where we were fighting and then we were losing, and then it's just like that one last ditch effort of just like we may get beat, but I guarantee you, at the end of this fight, they're going to know who SPaR is.
That's right.
100%.
They're going to remember the name.
They are going to remember.
This is Sparta.
Exactly. We've encountered that so many. That's what I'm saying. Like I said earlier, we've always felt, because of the limited amount of players that we carry, we're effective in fighting, but we're smaller in numbers. So we always feel like we're the underdog, and it's funny because we're strong, but a lot of alliances look at SPaR and go, oh, well, they're just a small alliance, but they completely underestimate our ability to be able to compete. You know what I mean? And then when we get in the field and they engage in battle with us, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, these dudes are legit. Like,
well, then they taste the real Spartan fight.
Yeah, they taste that. They taste it. They immediately like, oh crap, we better think about how we're going to attack these guys.
Yeah,
and we sometimes yeah, so it's back and forth. We had two alliances gang up on us one time, and they beat the brakes off of us, man. It was one of the worst butt kickings that we ever took, and it was during an IR, and they pushed us all the way back to our helipad. And so we were so defeated. Like we were like, let's just go back to region and screw this. But the beauty of SPaR is that no one wanted to quit. No, you're good. I was like, no one wanted to quit. And then like all my players are like, screw that. Let's go get them. Let's go attack them. And I'm like, no, we're beat. And they're like, well, I'm going back in. Like, so my players were like, I'm going back. I'm going to do something. And then so that put me in a predicament. I'm like, all right, hey, if we're going to go back, let's go back. And so we actually went back into this IR, and the two alliances that beat us back, one was from across the map, so they couldn't really do much. But the one that hit us the hardest was right below us because we were in the top right corner. You know what I mean? So we were like, let's just build down to their 6 and try to take their tower, cut all their line all the way to tower 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we did. We had 40 players all got on at the same time, and we just fast built all the way to their 6. And not only did we take their 6, we beat them so bad because they didn't have the support of the other alliance.
Right.
We beat them so bad that they were messaging me going, hey, can we work something out? I'm like, nah, you had that opportunity, bro.
That ship has sailed. Yeah.
Could at least had a little SniperSkillz up here by us. So since you didn't, we're just going to come take yours, and then we're going to take it. We're not going to give it back. So if you want to connect your tower, you can go around.
Yeah, you
You
can
know,
go all the way around. You can build around my
yeah,
fence, my wall, you know?
you know, so it's look, like you said it before. I think when you were talking to Panda, it's a beautiful game. It really is,
Yeah.
and I, I, I've never played another game as long as I've played this one, except maybe Star Trek Online.
Sure, sure.
Um, most of the other games, I get in, I'm like, this is boring. I'm just delete it. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. But the simple fact is that not only have I've established the relationships that I have in this game, I've established myself as a player in this game, and and it just it makes you fit into the community. You know
Yeah,
what I
you
mean? And
feel
I'm
accepted.
not gonna go right, and I'm not gonna go above and beyond and say that hey, I haven't made some enemies because I know I have,
Everybody
but
has.
yeah, I've made a lot more friends than I have enemies. I had one alliance threaten us one time. We're gonna come to 302, and I was like, you know what? Good luck with that, buddy. Because have you looked in our scene what who our allies are? Because unless you can compete with them, probably not going to work out for you. I think I would stay right in your region and sit down and shut up. So
It's
exactly. At the end of the day, because like I know, like if look, I I've built really good relationships with a lot of people in this game, and I know if something ever happened like that, where an invading alliance came into 302, all I'd have to do is get into the chat and say, hey, look, guys, we need some help.
yeah,
If
yeah.
anybody's available, you're talking about like between group, maybe Spreck, um, HMB, TPL, a couple of these other players and stuff like that. They would they were like, yep, on my way. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
they would have a big problem. So, but I wouldn't be able to have that had I not engaged in the community, built the relationships that I have with players and other alliances, and form those bonds in unity because it goes further outside of your own personal alliance. I
Yep.
mean, uh,
The amount,
even
like
like
we've
your
said,
player.
well, I'll give you a prime example. The amount of, I mean, we talk a lot about how the game itself. I mean, we say the game is beautiful, but it's beautiful because of its complexity. It looks simple, but there are layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of it to it. And one of the reasons why that, I mean, the community is the exact same thing, right? If you don't jump into the community, if you don't dive in and actually take the chance to meet it, it is like every other game. It's shit. But what makes it great is that we eventually connect with these people. There's people like you, like me, who give a shit enough about the game that we want to see it thrive. We want to see it continue, right? So we do the things we do. I create content to help newer players and free-to-play players kind of not only understand the mechanics, but get a better hand up onto it. You focus on, the players within your alliance, making sure that you're, helping the smaller individuals grow. And like you said, seeing that growth, even as an R5, I think one of the most fulfilling aspects is seeing those players that you work with not only succeed after taking your advice, but it gives you more comfort and understanding that you know the game too. One of the biggest things and eye-opening experiences I've had in this game, it came around Marco Airy. Because when Marco and Airy came and they first dropped, I did a video on it and I was looking through it and I was reading it. And in my head, I thought they were going to be super influential. I thought that they were going to be crazy. But I listened to other content creators who said that he wasn't nearly as good as what he was going to be. And I didn't get him. And it pissed me off because now you realize how influential he really is. But it made me realize that I do know what I'm talking about, right? As much as I can second guess and again, realize that all the information is entirely subjective to a person's experience, right? If you're a whale, for example, learning and listening to me is probably not as effective as listening to someone like Z or Panda, right? Who are on the higher scale and the more competitive side of things. But a lot of it just comes down to the longevity of this game. This game's been around now for, I think, 3.5 years, 4 years, I think, total from when it was like it originally came out. And in that time, I mean, yeah, we've had the community base that's grown, the player base has grown, but the developers themselves have been doing what they can to kind of keep the game going. So I do want to ask you a question here because we haven't been going a while, and we do got to wrap up here a little bit. But I do want to ask you a question that I ask everybody, and that really is, what advice would you give the developers themselves to give this game longevity? We've spoken about the community, we've spoken about the You know, like the play style. We've spoken about how, you know, how good it looks, all that kind of the additions that they've had to it. But what kind of advice would you want to give the developers directly to give this game the most longevity that you think it could have?
I think catering more to your player than anything and what they're asking for. I mean, there's so many things, there are so many aspects within the game that could be better. That I get on the Discord and I sometimes I just scroll through and see what the suggestions are. I'm like, man, that's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. And I've even made some suggestions myself,
Mm-hmm.
and these are good ideas. Like I saw your last video with Panda, like being able to do troop restriction types for garrison, and stuff like that would be huge. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if okay, so maybe if not lowering the cost, lowering the heal time, increase the amount of resources that you can gather. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And of course,
Why don't we have level 7
they
nodes yet?
right. So Isabel is a good addition for the ones that don't know the survivors that you can get. The one that you can purchase, Isabel, that does the auto gathering.
Mm-hmm.
She's really huge because you can't always be on gathering, but if you can set that where you can continuously gather resources, great. That does help, but it doesn't really make up the difference as far as like when you're out there battling compared to what it costs to actually heal.
For sure. For sure. Yep.
And then and not just necessarily maybe the cost, but the actual time it takes to heal.
Sure.
I think reducing maybe the time that it takes to heal, and of course, like the healing events during AR help, the elixirs help during IR. There's certain things that they have, and of course, and I completely understand the method that they look. They're a business and they want to make money, so people are going to buy the $9, $10 thing to heal troops. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I've done it still, even though I have plenty of resources, because I just got to get back in the battle. Like Panda says, like, hey, I got to get back in the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I
sometimes
just
you
got
don't
to do
have
what I
time
got
to micro heal 50,000 troops.
Exactly. You don't. And so I understand that, okay, well, that's an option. Just, I think basically making it more growth friendly for players
Mm-hmm.
to where they actually, if they're going to invest their time in their game, right, and their money, that they should have something and show in return for their time invested. You know what I mean?
For
Like,
sure, 100%. You want to have value in the things that you do. You want to find value in the things that you invest your time and money into, so that it actually makes it feel like your investment actually holds merit.
here's a great example. We had this conversation about the Pacific Rim thing, right? And when we brought it up in the chat, was like, okay, I just, not only me, but one of my players spent nearly $500 just to get the marking skin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so did I. Like, I ended up spending, like, I never spend this kind of money ever, but I got the tractor and the marching skin. But overall, I probably spent nearly $600
Mm-hmm.
to get both of them. And that's a lot of money for some people. That's a lot of money for me. Maybe not for some other guys, but it is for me. It is for other players.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if they were going to do something like that, fine, have a will or whatnot. But then, like, okay, so if the average price of a person's going to spend, like, say, between $800 and $500 or $400 to get like a particular marching skin or a vehicle, then why not just have an overall buy it price for $500
Sure,
and just
because
skip all of that? And if they want the resources and the other things from the wheel, great, let them buy the packs and spend the wheel and to get the speed ups and the resource packs and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody wants to obtain something to make their gaming experience better,
yeah,
right? Offer them that. So offer them that solution so they can continue to feel like, okay, if I'm going to exchange my monetary money for something, I want something in return, and I
mm-hmm.
want to feel like I'm satisfied with that purchase.
Absolutely.
That I think overall that would benefit IGG more if they did that as far as a game, and also benefit their community at the same time and build more loyalty in their fan base.
For sure.
That would probably be the biggest thing. I mean, the reason why I say this is because, like I said earlier, I played STO. I played Star Trek Online, and it was free to play, but you could also spend money. The cool thing about Star Trek Online is when I first started, like me and my best friend, we sit down, and we were like, man, there's so many things they could do better, right? Well, Star Trek Online had a dev contact, right, where you could actually submit ideas straight to the dev team.
Sure.
And we made like a 3-page list of things like, hey, man, we need to do this. Y'all need to do this. I think this would be a great implementation to the game and it's funny because we submitted all that, and guess what they did? They actually added all that stuff into the game.
Oh, nice.
it was like, oh wow, this is great. And then
So
so
listening, yeah, it makes sense.
a developer that actually listens to their fan base and gives them what they
Hmm.
want,
Hmm.
right? You can only expect your players to like, man, this not only is a great game, but the actual devs care about us as players to be able to give us the content that we want. You know what I mean? And that
Not
we're
just the shit
asking
that they
for.
want to throw at us.
Exactly, not stuff they're just
Yep.
going to just throw down your throat. And, hey, because there's been several times where they've released things, and I'm just like, uh, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, why
Oh,
not?
you
Why
mean
not?
like survivors or the vehicles or the beasts or the chips or the
Uh, why not the other stuff that everybody in Discord complains about? And you add this stuff which makes absolutely no sense that you just want people to buy. I mean, granted, you want to make some money, but okay, so do both. Add the content you want people to buy, but then also fix the things that people are asking for. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's just very simple things that they could do to overall make the game even better.
Yeah.
That it almost seems like people ask for and they completely ignore, and then they just
Well,
shove something else down.
this also comes down to my main question, which I think is kind of a precursor to all of this, which is what do you think, where do you think that the developers themselves, where do you think their headspace is? Is it based on developing a game that's going to last 5-10 years? Or is it based on throwing out as much stuff as they can, as quick as they can to make as much money as they can before they move on to their next project?
I think it's a little maybe. I think it could be a balance of both.
It
I
can't
really
be a
do.
balance of both, though. Let's be honest. You cannot have
Well,
longevity and a flash burn sale. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot do both, because the speed at which we're progressing now, the speed at which we're getting new additions, the speed at which the game itself, the meta itself, is changing dynamically, is not sustainable at the current metrics. If they keep adding new heroes as fast as they are, I mean, there has to be an eventual limit, whether it's a game limit, because it is a mobile game and you can't have that much, you know what I mean? Like that much data in the game for how much content they're going to put out. Or, like it becomes a huge conversation that says, well, where are they, where are they on that parabola? Are they going for something to last long, or are they going for something that's going to burn out quick? Because you can't do both. You can't have something that burns out quick for a long time, right?
well, hindsight is as long as they can sustain it with the inflow of money, they'll keep producing content. And
I guess you're right.
as long as the money keeps coming in, they're going to keep producing and giving players stuff that they really don't want. As long as people keep buying it, you know what I mean. We've had that deal where we've talked about, oh, let's boycott. Nobody buys anything, but realistically, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just gonna say the boycotts have tried; they just don't work.
they just don't work because you can't get the entire community. You can't round up the entire community enough to make it impactful enough for their pocketbooks to go, okay, well, maybe we need to start listening, so they'll start spending money. They don't care. They're just going to keep putting content out. As long as you keep buying it, they're going to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
If people get to where they're just like, man, I'm so burned out, man. Every time I turn around, I can't keep up with the game. They want to push something else, and that I can't even use, or I don't. What's the point? People want to start walking away from the game. They'll find other things to play. The game will then basically die out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sad to say that because a lot of people have invested not only their money but their time. But that's just the nature and the reality of the gaming industry is
That's
just
true.
that they come and go. Kind of
I
like
mean,
a new movie.
It's not like
A new movie
Fortnite.
comes out. Exactly. Or Call of Duty or Battlefield or anything like that, where your environment changes. The content is what it is. You can, but it's so much more about the environment and the people that you play with. Here, they just want to keep adding content, but not really change the environment. I mean, for how long have we been asking to bring back Darkseal?
At least a year since they took it away.
I mean, yeah, at least a year. And their message was like, "Oh, we're going to make some changes and it's going to come back." And then Genesis War comes out. And we're like, "Okay, what's this garbage?" You know what I mean? Like this is. Then they revamped IR, and then AR's been the same as it's always been since I've been playing. And
I was actually just
thinking.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I was actually just thinking, it's time for AR to go away for a little bit, for DS to make a return for a little bit and let them rework AR. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's time. If you want to do this type of process and dump so much shit on, that's fine. But give us another, give us another game mode, give us another something or other. And don't confuse DS with District Showdown. That Monopoly bullshit, not the same thing. Don't even give us the same vowels, you bastards.
They put that survey out over the wasteland exploration thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when they released the real wasteland, everybody, even the community, my players, everybody was all like, "Oh, this is going to be really cool." So I wonder if it's going to be like some field fighting where you take troops and explore an area, and then you field fight.
Nope.
You fight some
Clicking
zombies.
buttons.
And I know. And then so like when they sent the survey out, they're like, "Okay, it's like a 5-question survey that you fill out." And then like at the end, they said, what are your thoughts? And I wrote them. I literally wrote them. And I was like, I really think it's just a waste of time. I was like, you advertised one thing, then gave us another. I was like, people are tired of the click random get whatever you get, and then they can't even control what they do. I was like, you guys need to make it more interactive, field fighting, field battles, stuff like that people are craving, the PvP, things like that, where people they build their squads, they want to fight, they don't want to click a button and just get a random zombie and then click that button and it's like
give us
5
another
squads,
Pompeii event.
Yeah, another Pompeii event would be great. Which that's another thing that we've all been asking for, which would completely improve the game, is create more battle times for Pompeii, because the times that they have set are completely terrible.
Poo-poo buckets. Yep.
Yeah, unless you live in certain parts of the world. But for like U.S. players, like the 1900, that's what time we play it, is like at 2 p.m. Or there's the 03, the 0300, which is like at 10 p.m. for us. So
and then the other ones are like 3 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, what are we talking about?
We're either going to bed, we can't participate, or it's right in the middle of our stinking workday where we can't participate, and that kind of sucks. You know what I mean? So,
yep, absolutely.
Genesis, I don't understand the point of like literally having set battle times. IR doesn't, AR doesn't. So why set a battle time? Just let people brawl for it, man. Just let them go. They're either gonna have the resources to sustain a fight for however long they need to sustain, or they're just not.
Or at least have us let us select the time for Genesis War, like Pompeii. Wouldn't that be easy?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So there's a lot of things that they could implement to actually make the game better and more playable for all players. And I think a lot more players would enjoy that more. Your community would be stronger. Their opinions would be more unified and saying, yeah, this is great, man. They really cater to me because I live in the United States, or they cater to me because I live in Japan or whatever, so it works for everybody. Right now, it doesn't work for everybody. And that's kind of a terrible thing, because there's a lot of players that really love playing the game. Just the game doesn't work for them as far as time slots are concerned. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things they could do. There's a lot of things that I hope that they will do, because I think doing things would you talked about the sustaining the game for a certain amount of time, as opposed to how much you got to pay. Regardless if the game catered to the players, regardless of whatever content they put out, if players could still play the game and still felt like this game is fun because I can be involved and engaged in it, then regardless of whatever it costs to play, then I'll still stay around because the game's fun.
Yeah, that's
what I mean?
I mean, don't get me wrong. We can sit and bitch about the game as much as we want, right? There's obviously things that are wrong with it that we'd love to see different. But the difference is, it's not going to change the fact that we're still going to log in tomorrow. It's not going to change the fact that when this conversation is done here, I'm going to log right back into the game and continue what I'm doing and click off those red dots. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to change anytime soon. They've got their hooks into me. They've got them in deep, and I give them a ton of credit for that, right? So they've done something well. And like you said, I can understand that they need to make money. It's a business. I get it. I just wish that they gave a shit more about the average player than they do about their top contenders. And I wish that they catered more to the average contender than they did just their top 1%. Unfortunately, we live in a life where everything is catered to the top 1%. Even in games like this, it's catered to the top 1%. Well, I've never been a part of the top 1%. So I don't see it happening anytime soon. I want to be catered to as well,
Well, I recognize one problem in the game, and I hope I'm going to say this because I've been thinking about this. I actually brought it up to you the other day in the chat, because I hope they see this and really take into account, because I've seen this discrepancy. It's almost as plain as day. At first, it wasn't as clear, but what I'm about to say is going to make 100% sense. So if like the event, the matching, because y'all guys got a really terrible matching in IR. I 100% agree. When you posted that, I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, they don't what? They didn't compensate for, like, okay, we're going to put these brackets in Fearless, Elite, and Apex brackets. They didn't compensate that even these smaller alliances are going to grow. They're going to grow. Like the 3 billion alliances are going to become 4 billion. The 6 billion alliances are going to become 8 billion. You know what I mean? And so they're going to continue to grow. Players grow. So they didn't take an account for, okay, well, Apex is the elite, the top tier players, or top tier alliances. Okay, so how many do you have that were elite that are now moving into that bracket? How many do you have in the Fearless that are moving into an elite? So now it creates a really big unbalanced situation within the Fearless and the elite brackets, because if they were to basically take Fearless, which is like, it's like it starts at 256 and goes all the way to 2000, break it down into like maybe four more tiers, to where they separate like the 2 billion and the 3 billion, or the 2 billion and the 4 billion.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, because I totally see where you're coming from. But here's the major issue with that, okay? The major issue with that is that they're not opening up how many alliances. So you're right. Everything is growing, right? But you know what else is growing? The bottom limitation to be in the 2200. So you mentioned 2 billion alliances. They don't even make the cut anymore. Do you know what that 2200 limit is? On the last rating, 3.5 billion.
Yeah. Yeah, because my sub alliance, SPaR 1.
Yep.
I was telling them, like, I sent players over because they wanted to do Genesis War, right? And I'm like, yeah, I actually went over and helped them register for Genesis War, the last Genesis War, so they've never done an event. They're a new alliance, but their might was like 3.2 billion, and they couldn't even get into Genesis War unless they had almost I think we entered at 3.7 billion. And it was so funny. I was talking to the R5 that I have put in that slot over there, where she's doing a fantastic job, Mysterious. I told her, I was like, you guys don't even know. Like, when I first came in the game, you could get in the IR with 2.5 billion, 2.7 billion would get you registered for AR. Now you can't even touch that with a minimum of 3.5, maybe even 3.7 now.
Listen,
it's like,
there was no limitation before. You could make it into IR at 1 billion. It was based it was based entirely on your region. It was it used to be like the top 5 alliances from every region. So if you end up in a small region or an unpopulated region at 1 billion might, you would still be able to participate in IR. And then once they created so many regions, they had to open up the amount of alliances that could participate. But here's the problem. They keep opening regions, but they haven't expanded how many people can participate. So unfortunately, that list becomes more restrictive and more restrictive and more restrictive every passing time, which is a huge issue, in my opinion, to a lot of these players, because you're not even getting the chance to play the game. Like, they should even open up, even if they open up, say 2200 in the top for rewards, they should still open up the bottom 2200, right? An additional 2200 in the bottom, and just limit, like you said, add a couple more brackets in there, but make sure that we add more than just 2200 alliances. Make it 33, or make it comparable to the amount of regions that you have open. When you open more regions, open more accessibility to the events as well.
100%, because you and I both know that this game rewards the participant. The person who participates gets rewarded. If you're in an alliance that can't even get, if you're in a small alliance, and I've seen smaller, I call them smaller alliances, they got like 120 players, right? But there is no player in that alliance over 100 mil. They're all like between 40 or maybe 80, but they have the equivalent of like 3.6 billion. You know what I mean? They may or may not even get into AR or IR because of their might. They need that well. Okay, so what happens if you add the well to your alliance? Now you're fighting other wells that that the other 123 can't even compete with.
Don't even get me started on the problem with immigration and the problem with needing whales in every alliance. Don't even get me started. We'll be here for another hour. Okay, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
But I think me saying that, I think you're not the only one. If somebody watches the video, like, man, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, the best thing that you can do is like guys like me and you is cater to our smaller players, try to help them grow, understand the nature of the game, support them, even though that the people that we're fighting, it's not going to be conducive for them. Hey, look, I understand that this player is going to be, these players that we're going to fight are stronger than you. I get it. I'll support you. I don't expect you, but just try to just
fight for your food. I like how you said that. We fight for our food.
Yeah, I tell people, I don't expect anything. All I expect is you to try.
Yeah.
Just try.
Yeah.
If you can't do something or won't do something because you can't, because if you're trying, then I can see that you're going to grow. I tell every player, look, the game rewards those who participate. If you participate, you'll grow. If you don't participate, you won't grow. It's basically on you. So, there's so many that we could probably sit here and have a 4 or 5 hour conversation about this stuff, and and still be just as entertained as the last couple hours.
Listen, this is exactly why I love this podcast, okay? And this is exactly why I get the comments in support of this podcast, because it really is something that we all share, right? And this is kind of a great way to kind of end the whole thing, because like I said, we've been talking now for almost 2 hours. And time has absolutely flown by. And a lot of it is because of the fact that we give a shit, right? And because we give a shit, more of that, personality comes out in the conversations. We get more understandings of, of each other's strategies. But the whole premise is just to have people understand that we are real people. We are actual people on the other end of the phone, on the other end of the tablet, on the other end of the PC. We are real people with real experiences going through real things, and all we're doing is doing it together, right? Which by its own right is exactly what creates that community that we all keep coming back to, which is exactly where I think it's a perfect place to end the podcast today. I'm going to say, number one, thank you so much for joining us. The conversation has been absolutely fantastic, Sniper. Thank you very much. But before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to give any shout outs to any players, any friends, any alliance mates, anything like that. Anyone you want to say hi to, take the opportunity to go ahead and say hi to them.
Yeah, I mean, right off the top, I just want to thank and say hi to my team. Basil, Snake, Pristine, Killer, Cole. The list goes Beast. The list goes on as far as my team. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for those guys. SPaR wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the team. Outside of that, I could think of a handful of people like yourself, Chris. Thanks for having me. Englander over in TPL has been a great friend. Reaper over in HMB has been a great friend to me. There's so many people. Egypt, the list goes on. The guy HDX over in 633 or 632. You got Zeus over there, Mysterious, who's running SPaR1. There's just so many people that I'm so grateful to have met and to be able to experience the game with. And there's probably some that I'm leaving out, and I don't think, because I can't think of your name right off the top of the bat, that I don't know you or I don't recognize you, because if I can't think of your name right off, it doesn't mean that there's any less value on you as a person or a player. I appreciate everyone that I've come across in this game that's helped me grow, that's helped continue to help me grow. And, if there's anything that I could ever do for anyone in this game, if they ever come across any trouble or whatnot, they could always reach out to me in SPaR and 302 and contact me, and I'll do whatever I can to help anybody in the community, regardless of whatever alliance that you are in or how you affiliate with whatever nationality that you are. That doesn't matter. We're going to run this together. We all play this together. We all grow together. And at the end of the day, you put our feelings aside or what rivalries that we have. We're a community and we're just people. And you know what? We should be able to have fun and enjoy our lives that way.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I absolutely appreciate that sentiment. It's a great place to end it. Thank you again for joining us. To everybody at home, if you've gotten this far, I commend you. This has been one heck of a conversation here. We've had an absolute blast doing it. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Fill out the notification bell so you get any new notifications when we drop new content. If you haven't yet, go ahead and click the join button. Become a member. It's only $6.99 Canadian a month. And if you live outside of Canada, if you're in the States, it's like $4.50, so it's super cheap. But unfortunately, IGG doesn't pay its developers or its creators very much, or anything, pardon me, and YouTube doesn't pay very much. So anyway, you can support the channel, support the stream. Feel free to click that join button and become a member today. Other than that, folks, love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time. Now you say stay lifted.
Stay lifted.